What is up, First Round Fantasy fans? Welcome to the First Round Fantasy Podcast, your place for second round advice. I am your host, Jacob Bartley, and we're just doing a two-man show today with Justin Morsaz. What is going on, man?
Yeah, good to be back. Love this week of football. It was interesting and want to talk about it,
It is very interesting. And I'll tell you what, man, I love fantasy football, and a lot of people get frustrated with it, and I'm just glad that me and my friends care about something so much. Like it's a communal thing and it's fun, right? But I'll tell you what, I am having my worst year of fantasy football ever. I play in 6 leagues with people that I know. And this week I lost in all 6 of them.
Oof.
That's yes.
I remember because you know me, I get heated when we talk fantasy, and if I lose, it's a really bad day. But you said that's why I play in 6 leagues, man, because I'll win somewhere. I feel bad for you today. Then.
Can you imagine?
So that,
because before earlier in the season, you told me like, how do you deal with these losses? And I'm like, look, I play in 6 leagues. I win 2 of them. I'm happy,
Yeah.
But I lost in all 6. And as you saw in a group chat earlier yesterday, I was like, goodbye fantasy football. It's been fun. Obviously I'm joking, but it is hard to stay optimistic when you're losing 6 matchups in 1 week.
It feels like that.
It's crazy, man, and some of these, a couple blowouts, but some of these are like, I lost by 3 points. I needed Gronk to get me 6 points and I would have won.
Yeah.
I lost by 3 points. Another one, I lost by 1 point. I needed Evans to get me 5 points. I lost by 1 point. And then, as you know, in our other league, I lost by 10 when I could have just made one simple roster decision. So it is frustrating, man.
I think a lot of people lost games based off Tampa Bay's performance. So you're
absolutely.
not alone on that.
Can you imagine? Let's say you were down by 20, right? And you had Brady and Gronk, and you're like, "Ooh, I got this!" Like you already assume you're gonna win, right? Like in your mind, you lost, which is crazy.
That was a bad night for
a lot of people. And look, I guess I can't be mad because like a lot of people felt that. I just got the worst of it, I guess.
Yeah,
but
you just struck out 6 times in a row there.
I guess the whole point is, if you think you have it bad, look at me. This is terrible. This is my worst year in fantasy ever. There's like 2 or 3 in my leagues that I truly care about, like that I want to win the most, right? For bragging right purposes. Of course I want the money, but it's more for bragging right purposes. And those are the ones I'm having a really tough time in. So,
this is a great point because, you can go listen to any podcast, hear the standard stuff, but the reason you come here is for the details. I'm about to drop a detail that means a lot. I know it's easy to check out in your situation. You're out of the playoffs already. But this is still where you can put in the work for next year. Review your draft picks, review the trades you made, what you liked, what you didn't like, and set yourself up for that consistent game plan to not let that happen again. So even though you're out of it, there's still next week and next season. So keep looking for the things that need to get you over the top.
Absolutely. And that's a good point. I learn something new pretty much every week in fantasy football, and there's some adjustments I need to make, but I can talk about those later. Let's get to the show. Before we get started, let me just tell you guys, if you have not yet, please check out our audio podcasts on Anchor, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you find your podcasts. Basically, search for us. You should be able to find us at First Round Fantasy. Also, please go and purchase a First Round Fantasy shirt if you have not, from TeePublic. Just go to tpublic.com and search First Round Fantasy, and you should be able to get some. Justin, I heard you might have some First Round Fantasy gear on the way. Did you pull the trigger on it?
It took me a minute. I just wanted to get the right piece, and I got 2 shirts, so I'm excited to get those in. I know it's basic T-shirts, but, I liked what they had, and I got black and asphalt, so it should be a nice
No, I mean,
nice
it's so fun. Like when you create something and you're part of something, to wear it and rep it is fun. It's cool.
Oh yeah, I'm excited. Hopefully it comes soon.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, let's get into some major injury news. All right. So, look, every week we have some major injury news to talk about. And you know what? This is the shortest list almost all year, but it's a significant list. So unfortunately, and as you know, Justin, I'm in a dynasty league, and I have Christian McCaffrey in that league, which is great, right? Like
Mm.
to have Christian McCaffrey in a dynasty league is amazing. He comes out just total Christian McCaffrey game, like that. The receiving, the rushing, the touchdowns. It's
It's
just
a, it's as if
unbelievable.
he never missed a
It's
week.
unbelievable, to be honest, because like I wasn't watching that game. I peeked at it every now and then, but I was just checking the stats and I was like, oh my goodness, he's still doing it. And then I'm like, I see a questionable tag on his next to his name afterwards, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, are you kidding me? And apparently he injured his shoulder near the end of the game. And at first, it was speculated that it was going to be something serious. But the latest news that I have is that the coach said it is day to day. But we hear this all the time from coaches. They're typically more optimistic than anybody else because, of course, they want their player to come back and things like that. So I don't know the full details of this, but it's just really crappy because even if you don't have Christian McCaffrey, I think it's just exciting to have him back in fantasy football. And now he might be gone again, even if it's just
Dude,
for 1 week or so.
I'm telling you, the league missed him every week. It's just the most electric, and he didn't miss a beat. And yeah, I saw the same, and I felt the same. But I, you know, I don't want to say you should expect him for week 10 because these coaches really hide the significance of the injury, and it seems like the league shifted into, I'll say it's day to day. We're gonna miss at least 1 week. Let's protect our players. And I feel bad because we all want him. We all want to see him. I love the fact that he might be injured if I'm going against him, but just for fantasy in general, I want to see the man play. You know what I mean? So hopefully it's truly a day to day. It's not an Aaron Jones like, okay,
Yeah.
he's here tomorrow. We're gonna miss 3 weeks type of thing. That would just be a bummer. But yeah, sad, sad. But hopefully it's good.
Yeah.
Good
I'm
news.
crossing my fingers like most people out there that like we just want him back, man. It makes the conversation fun. It makes the leagues more fun. We need Christian McCaffrey back because we don't have a lot of players, and even those we do have are not doing what we thought they would.
Seriously.
So real quick, Kyle Allen hurt his ankle, a serious ankle injury. He's having season-ending surgery. Not much to go off of here. Possibly the fantasy players in Washington might have improved. I don't know if
Uh,
you would say Gibson and McLaurin have improved based on this, with Alex Smith already named the starter for next week. But that's really the only thing to take away with this. How does this affect Gibson and McLaurin and
I'll
JD McKissick? I guess you could say who's like the number 3 or 4
That's
running
right.
back on the week.
I'll talk a little bit more about him soon. Yeah.
So do you think those skill players improve fantasy wise?
Not Gibson to be honest.
Okay.
McLaurin had a beautiful game, so I thought I like him. Alex Smith is not awful. He's below average, but he's not off. I mean, he had an awful game too. I don't know. It's weird, but I'm saying if we know anything about Alex Smith, that boy checks down. So JD McKissick is the clear cut third down pass catching back, and I think he's going to be a safe floor play coming forward, even more safe than he's been.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I like McLaurin going forward. And obviously McKissick had a great game. So but I do think that it's McLaurin is just a great fantasy receiver. He's QB proof. It doesn't matter whose QB is. He's gonna be great. So we also have Justin Jackson, who hurt his knee on the first play of the game, left the game, came back, and then I believe he left again, leaving Joshua Kelly and Kalen Ballage to take the reins here. This is unfortunate because Justin Jackson was looking like a solid replacement. Most Eckler owners, managers like myself, were plugging in Jackson, loving what they were getting, and now he's out. I don't feel good about Ballage or Kelly if he's out for a significant time.
Yeah, it's a tough injury. You think one injury would make a backfield more clear, and it just didn't.
And that's the thing. They signed Kalen Ballage
So odd.
because the guy Pope was in concussion protocol. And the thing is, like, Pope might be coming back. And then now you have Balaj, Kelly, and
I stay away. I mean, if you
yeah.
have to, you play and pray for a touchdown. Basically, is how you're running those guys. If I had to, I'm not gonna lie, I would start Balaj over the rest of the field, but I'm not happily starting him.
Yeah, no way. It's crazy. Kelly has been one of the most disappointing things this season because I was high on him and I rostered him in a few places before the season started, and then he started off the season with a lot of volume, and then he's just not proving to be what us and maybe the coaches thought he could be. Another thing, David Montgomery is out with a concussion, and the thing is with concussions, and I will quote somebody that I follow is Stefania Bell. She says concussions are nonlinear, meaning there's no timetable for them. It can be a 6-week issue, it can be a 1-week issue, so we don't know when he's going to be able to clear protocol here. But the thing is, I'll tell you what, I can't even tell you who his backup is. So that just goes to show who's starting a Bears running back.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Cordero Patterson would be running the show.
That's the thing. They use him as a running back. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like Montgomery was doing much for you, but we want him back because it's still a bell cow that you probably will have to start if you have him. But yeah, concussion. We'll see.
Well, that's the thing too. He's getting a lot of volume, but he wasn't producing much. And I guess they have Ryan Nall, and they could call Lamar Miller up from the practice squad, but none of that sounds promising. We're going to talk about the waiver wire in a second here, but I'm not including any of these names in my recommendations at all.
No.
And then real quick, Laviska Shenault left with a hamstring injury. If he's out, it's just better for Chark.
I think he's drop worthy at this point, and I'm a Shenault guy, but
I actually thought he was drop worthy before this, but
yeah, this solidifies it.
Yeah, definitely. You can clear that roster spot if you need it, and I'm assuming a lot of people need it until these bye weeks are done. And funny, I pull him up in one of our leagues, and who other than you are his manager? But yes, so Laviska Shenault's chance to suit up for Week 10 against the Packers. It's not looking good. I mean, Chark is the only guy you want there. How did Keelan Cole do this week?
Good question. I know Shark balled out, and maybe they shared some love around the field.
Keelan Cole, 2 targets, 1 reception, 6 yards. That is interesting. So, yep, again, Chark, maybe Cole if full game. But the thing is, Minshew was targeting Cole a lot. They have a new Jake Luton there, so we'll see how that goes. And also Noah Fant again banged up his ankle, but he returned to the game and played, but he wasn't doing much once he returned, which is the thing. If Noah Fant was just stayed 100% fully healthy, he would be great.
Yeah, there's just not a lot to pivot to, so we hope he's back so you can start him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I actually started 2 tight ends this week in a league. I started Noah Fant and TJ Hawkinson. I wasn't too disappointed with it. I just wish Noah Fant would have stayed in the whole game is the thing.
Yeah, that's crazy. 2 tight ends. That's a risky move.
It definitely is, but sometimes you have no choice when you have guys like Brandon Ayuk pulled out last minute.
Seriously.
All righty, so let's get to our waivers. And
I'm ready to go in, Coach. Just give me a chance. I know there's a lot riding on it, but it's all psychological. Just got to stay in a positive frame of mind.
All righty, so let's get into some waivers, man. I am not loving the look of waivers this week, but I'll let you go first, Justin. Who do you got? And list as many names as you want.
I'm actually feeling really good about this. That's interesting.
Really?
Just to premise it, I've held on to my waiver slots the entire year. I have not used it once, which is a big mistake early, but these past weeks. But this week I might consider because the number one guy I want to pick up, and we spoke about him, McKissick. This guy is really good and underrated, and Alex Smith checks down a lot. He's a PPR back, and I saw a stat. I want to say Antonio Gibson has not handled a single third down all year. And I think that sounds crazy, and I want to verify that.
Wow.
But it just further shows
that's interesting because he was coming out of college being scouted as a receiving back, and he actually played more receiver in college than he did running back. Well, he actually had more receiving yards and receptions than he did like carries and yards.
I don't follow college. That's crazy, but maybe that's just testament to how much they like McKissic as their change of back. But actually, I just found the stat, and it's not verified, but I don't see why they'd lie about it. Only 1 third down touch, so it's close to zero. But McKissic's a great guy. He's only rostered in 24% of Yahoo leagues, which is absolutely insane to me. If that,
I'm gonna be honest, I thought you rostered him in a few leagues already.
Oh, I rostered
you've talked about him before.
Yeah, I have him for sure, and I've had him for about 6 weeks at least by now. So he was on my radar starting. But,
I remember you mentioned him a couple weeks back, and I think we all laughed.
Yeah, and right. I mean that's where champions are built. Every week we find those gold mines. Moving on, Wayne Gallman. If Freeman's not playing, I don't like the running back field. And look at Montgomery got hurt. We didn't mention it, but Damian Harris got hurt. We don't know how long he's out. If you have to play Gallman, you don't feel amazing, but he's going to be the back in New York, so why not? Next, Duke Johnson, if he's available. Again, PPR back. David Johnson's beat up a little bit. I don't see why they continue running him and not passing to Duke Johnson a little bit more. So he got a touchdown, 15 and some odd points this week. PPR, beautiful. Would you pick out of those guys, rank them for me? McKissic, Gallman, Johnson.
Okay, so I'll probably rank McKissic 1.
Okay.
You've actually, I wasn't too high on him. Sometimes I'm just like, I don't want any part of that guy. And then that hurts me sometimes because sometimes those guys end up being very valuable. But yeah, I'll rank McKissic number 1 because I do think Alex Smith is going to lean on him a lot, and they're already using him. So, and even before this week. So I like him. Man, I'm going to go Duke Johnson number 2 because I don't even know who the other names would be in that situation if David Johnson sits. And I just think the way the NFL is designed nowadays, the pass catching running back is very valuable, especially in fantasy. And then I'm going to go Wayne Gallman number 3, which I don't mind Wayne Gallman, though. I actually talked about him on the Saturday show recently, and you can do worse. But the thing is with me, I didn't check out the New York game this week too much, but the week before they were using like 3 guys. They were using Dion Lewis and they were using Alfred Morris as well. But again, Gallman has another solid game with 14 rushing attempts, 68 yards, a touchdown. And they don't show his receiving work when you look him up on the desktop. But I don't know if he had any good receiving work. But I like all 3 of these guys. I just think that the other 2, like for me, it's just they have too many guys in New York. But if they're just going to use Gallman, he's looking pretty solid. But yeah, I'll go McKissic.
He had 2 targets, 1 catch, 9 yards, so he wasn't utilized that much. But
not too much.
Yeah, I agree with you. And another great point about why you want Johnson over Gallman is 2 reasons. 1, New York's backfield is shaky as it is, so if someone comes back, he may lose his job. And 2, for those leagues that lock rosters after trade deadlines, some leagues you can't even make waiver wires. I rather just long-term Johnson. Yeah.
Wow.
I found it surprising, but some people, it might be a low number.
That's crazy, but
those are hardcore
That's
leagues.
A good point either way, even if your waivers don't lock, because your roster, the only way you're going to be able to change your roster is waiver pickups and drops, right? So if you can't trade to improve your lineup, you got to pick up players who are going to be long-term options as opposed to short-term options. Devontae Freeman could be back in New York mixing in with those other 3 guys, where even if David Johnson comes back, I still think Duke Johnson will have a role.
Yeah, no, he got injured and banged up, so people forgot about him. So I like him as a good fill-in waiver this upcoming week. And one last name, I don't. Never mind. I don't want to bring up Frank Gore. I did, but don't pick him. It's not worth it.
It's so funny. Like, it's totally viable to like roster him and start him if you have to, but I still don't want to do it.
I don't know if it's even viable. He doesn't. He's broke double digits one time all year, so I don't know. But I
It's
guess
just funny
Zeke's
that
in the
like
same boat almost.
we say like every starting running back is like considerable, right? Like for fantasy, but even if they're like Frank Gore's our starting running back, which they have done basically, we still don't want to roster and start him.
I mean, is there some way we can merge Kareem and him together to make one real running back? I'd like that. But yeah, no.
Dude.
You got any more running backs, or is that cover it?
So were you only naming running backs this time?
No, I got wide receivers, but I figure we cover the running backs because
that's a good way to do it by position. For me, I have one running back on my list, and I actually only have a few names on my list because I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't too impressed. But I need to check something. I'm still going to mention his name, but I need to check the update on his teammate.
No problem.
I'm talking about Cam Akers. Now, the thing is, Darrell Henderson Jr. left the game last week, and they're on a bye week, and Cam Akers stepped in for him and did all right. The point is, the Rams are a highly efficient running team. Darrell Henderson was, for better or worse, like a decent, RB3, RB2, which is like usable in the fantasy landscape these days. And the thing is, the Rams, Sean McVay said, oh, he'll be fine for week 10, but we don't know that yet. And we have to make our waiver decisions today, if you're listening on Tuesday, right? So I'm not saying don't drop 40% of your fab on Cam Akers. Don't use your number one waiver wire on Cam Akers if we don't know any news about Darrell Henderson yet. But if you're one of those who goes in and picks up the leftover scraps after everybody's already made their waiver claims, check out Cam Akers, because if let's say you found out Darrell Henderson out for 6 weeks, wouldn't you want to roster Cam Akers? And it's not just going to be Malcolm Brown as the starter. And we've seen Henderson produce even with Malcolm Brown in the lineup. So I think potentially, like, if Henderson ever were to miss time, that he could be a week winner for you. That's the only name I got.
I like that. It's not a start worthy player, but it could be a long-term game if you can just roster him. No, that's a very good point. Yeah. I do believe Henderson's going to be back, but you never know what these upcoming weeks hold. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and start the wide receiver one, and I only have one wide receiver to name.
Tell me.
And you probably have him on your list too, and this is Curtis Samuel.
Yep.
I'm sure you have him on your – this guy is 30% rostered in Yahoo leagues, and I can't imagine it's much more anywhere else. Because, if you look at one platform, it's pretty representative of how all fantasy players feel about him. And how is he still rostered or still under at 30% or less when he had these back-to-back weeks of 17 fantasy points and 21 fantasy points? And that's in full PPR, where he had 6 catches for 48 yards, 4 catches for 31 yards, and a touchdown. And I can't even see his rushing stats on here, but I know he's been used as a rusher as well and been productive there. And then he comes in and has this third week of 9 catches for 105 yards and a touchdown. Now, look, I understand they have Robbie Anderson, they have DJ Moore, McCaffrey, hopefully he's playing, or whether it's his backup, those guys are going to catch balls too, but production is production, and he's doing it. So this is another guy where it's like, I avoided him all season, and I like to add speculative ads on my bench to like a guy who might emerge later. And I should have been looking his way, because he wasn't even disappointing before that. Like, if you look at all his fantasy weeks, like in a year where we'll take a guy who gets you 9 points in your flex, like he's getting us 9 points, 5 points, 9 points, 7 points, 11 points, and then 17, 21, 26. Like he's going to end up as a top 30 wide receiver if he keeps producing like this, and that's pretty valuable.
Oh, I love it. These are the finds that help you solidify your playoff runs, because if you need a fill-in and he just has a great second half to the season, it came out of nowhere and you got him for free. The thing about Curtis Samuel, I see it so many times. I see one team with 3 wide receivers that all change paces, and you just, oh, no, I can't have Curtis Samuels because Robbie's the man. And DJ is good, but DJ hasn't been that good. It's actually been Samuels. And what I love about Samuels, you brought up the rushing, he's been used like we see Debo and Ayuk used, where it's just Swiss Army knife. He'll do it all on the field for them. And I'd much rather roster him than DJ Moore right now. And I don't think the rest of the casual community even would consider that maybe after this week, but I highly doubt it. I drop people like Chenault for him in a heartbeat. You know what I mean? Great pickup and under owned in this season altogether. One guy that I want to mention that's kind of in a deep league, but he fits into the category of, okay, I need a flyer. Let me go get McCole Hardman types. And this is David Moore from the Seahawks.
Yeah,
He doesn't get many targets, but I don't know why he just gets that touchdown out of nowhere. And it's like, okay, you saved my fantasy week type of game. Not many catches, not many targets, but when he does get that catch, it's like a nice gain. It's a touchdown. And I much rather have him than a McCole Hardman, or I keep saying his name, Chenault, but these like third tier guys on these teams.
Oh yeah.
David Moore is much more desirable for me. And he's, what's his percentage right now? He's only 3% rostered, so I guarantee he's available in your league.
Yeah, man. I remember back when I think they still had Doug Baldwin, or it was the year Doug Baldwin retired, and then it was just Lockett, right? And I remember I remember scouting DJ Moore, or is it? No, it's not DJ Moore. It's David Moore. David Moore. Same initials and same last name. And this guy's big, and he's talented. And I remember scouting him and thinking, like, if this guy can, be consistent, he could be really good. And now he's kind of playing that third fiddle to these other 2 amazing receivers. And I agree with you, man. I saw that. I watched that touchdown catch live, and I was like, man, can you imagine if this guy, because we talk about like the Cowboys wide receivers, right? When Dak was there, even though Gallup wasn't killing it, you still rostered him and you still started him as a flex, like not you specifically, but fantasy managers. Yeah. And why can't Russell Wilson, support 3 wide receivers? Not that he's going to be your every week wide receiver 2 in your lineup, but you're always kind of swinging for the fences in that last flex spot sometimes. And why not a guy like David Moore, or at least hold him on your bench? Yeah, to me, this is the first year where I'm like, handcuffing wide receivers is a thing. And if something were to happen to one of the other wide receivers there, I think he would have a huge bump. So that's a good one. Yeah.
Very good points. You got any more waivers? I got one tight end.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
It's my boy Irv Smith Jr.
Is he even in the NFL? Does he play for a professional franchise?
I think Rudolph finally went on vacation, and it's his job now, so it's a little promising. Now Rudolph still gets targets, but the reason I say Irv Smith is because for some reason the Vikings, I'm a Viking fan, I watch their games. It's as if they like morph like into different spheres. We're only running it, we only pass it. And I think we got into that point where we're doing a little bit of everything off Dalvin Cook's back, of course. But when we get within 8-7 yards, Irv Smith's getting targets. So, I mean, tight end is tight end, and you somehow manage to start 2 of them. But if you're in that tight end waiver wire hell, why not give a shot to someone to get some red zone targets? He had 2 touchdowns. He had 4 targets, 2 touchdowns, 10 yards. That's off 2 catches. So, I mean, he's a tight end guy. You're looking for a tight end touchdown bust guy? Why not go here? So that's the only guy. We know about everyone else on the wire, but this guy's up and coming the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, I've actually had my eye on him for like 2 years, man. Because Rudolph kind of fell off the last couple of years. He used to be a solid a fantasy tight end, and he kind of fell off. And I was like, Irv Smith, man, this guy's like physically just very talented, and if he could just get consistent targets, man, he would be really good. And they love him there, I've heard.
Yeah, I think we get rid of Rudolph's time and after this year, but he's very good run blocker. Like, he's a big body. He likes to play the line, and we're a running team. That's the only reason. But
That
I
makes
think
sense.
come next year it transitions and he'll be an actual decent start week to week type of tight end. But if you're in that position, I like to go there this week.
Yeah. So I have another wide receiver as well, but I was gonna save him for my dark horse of the week. But since there's only two of us, I doubt we're gonna take each other's dark horses. But I still have another backup, so I'll mention him here. And this is Jalen Reagor of the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, he didn't have a great stat line last 2 weeks ago when he played, but I watched that Eagles game, and he's not the tallest guy on the field, but he plays like, I mean, for lack of a better way of explaining it, he plays like a man. Like, this guy's tough. Like, I don't know if you saw his touchdown and his 2-point conversion 2 weeks ago, but he just looks like, I don't know how to explain it, just like rugged and just like a beast. Like, and he's not, like I said, he's not DK Metcalf. He's not huge, but I think once we come back from the bye week, which is next week or this upcoming week for them, it's going to be consistent. I think Fulgham has found his footing there, and I think my tight end waiver pickup, which I'm going to mention in a second, is going to be solid for them. So I think Reagor is going to be another consistent thing in this passing game, and so I think he's a speculative ad for sure.
No, if he's not rostered, he better be rostered, because he and Fulgham are the new boys in town over there. The days of Deshaun and Alshon, it's time to move past that.
We're done with those guys.
Yeah, these guys, and it's not that.
Dude, Jalen Reagor, 24% in Yahoo leagues.
You have to pick him up. Yeah. I couldn't even expect it. That's why I didn't even bring up his name. I figured he was already taken. If you listen to the show, we've been telling you to take
you actually mentioned him, made a dynasty suggestion for this guy, right?
I'm 2 weeks ahead, baby. Every week I'm always ahead. I'm looking ahead. That's why we got to tune in and see these tips that push you over the top. I love the pickup.
Even if we make a dynasty suggestion and you only play in redraft, like, there's a reason why we're making those suggestions, right? Like a Jalen Reagor type guy. Yeah. Doesn't mean he's only good for adding in dynasty leagues. He could be usable this season. And like you said, I think it's going to be him and Fulgham as the wide receivers there. And that's it.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah, for sure. And then I actually mentioned a tight end. So Dallas Goedert. So he was on his bye week. We know Zach Ertz is out. And now Dallas Goedert is actually at 56%, which it must have been lower than that before he came back, I'm assuming.
Yeah, he's fluctuating.
So even if looking at how crappy tight end is, and he had a bad game 2 weeks ago, but that was his first game back. We know the Eagles have been struggling. They're just trying to put together an offense every week, and they're starting to get healthy again with no Zach Ertz, and we saw the other Rodgers. Is it Richard Rodgers?
Yeah,
he had a solid game when Goddard was out. So if he steps into that role, if 56%, that means he's still available in a lot of leagues. I would definitely pick him up for sure.
Let me ask you. Some people probably are in this predicament the same as me. I had Ertz, not good. I picked up Goddard after he got injured. People dropped him. I started him and got burnt big time off that 1-point performance. Then come the waiver wires, I pick up some fodder and someone dropped Evan Ingram. And I started Ingram and he had a great week. Moving forward, do you take Ingram or Goddard?
That is tough. All right. So you're obviously saying in this scenario, I have to drop one of them.
Yes, you pick. Let's just say starting moving forward.
Okay. Man, it's hard to bench Ingram after that great game.
Yeah, I mean, I value.
Okay, so let's say, what are the match? I mean, I guess you're saying overall, like week to week, but it depends on the matchup. But the thing is,
intertwine them.
It would be, if let's say they have, all things being equal, let's say they have a similar matchup, like they both have a good matchup or a hard matchup, whatever the case is. I would go with Ingram because I've seen it. It's there. But like, I think Goddard's going to be the more consistent player going forward for the rest of the season.
Yeah, it's a hard one. I think if I was in that position, I'd lean Goddard just because I know the Eagles utilize the tight end a little bit more, and Ingram, although he gets a lot of targets, they don't do much with him. But it's close.
Hey, you aren't the only one who took advantage of Ingram being dropped in leagues. I'll tell you
Oh
that.
yeah, that's right,
Yeah.
baby.
It's funny. He gets dropped and now he's playing well. So
This is how life is in tight end land.
yeah. Look, man, there's one more thing, and I don't know if this is viable for 10-team leagues, but Tua Tagovailoa, however I've heard his name pronounced so many different ways. But dude, he had a solid game. And
Yeah, I
I
mean,
almost look, I have Mahomes out. Great. Now everybody in our leagues are going to go block me from picking up a quarterback. I have Mahomes out next week, right? So I was looking ahead to who hadn't played yet, and Tua hadn't played. I was like, should I pick up Tua and maybe so I can have him for next week before he plays? And I didn't do it, but I'm not saying start him in your 10-team leagues, but if you're in deep leagues or 2 quarterback leagues, I mean, he definitely should be rostered in 2 quarterback leagues, but
oh yeah,
would you consider starting him in the right matchup?
I would. I mean, he's that offense is clicking. That like it's not the Dolphins that we know of the past 2 3 years. They're actually a good, well-rounded team this year, and I don't see why their offense discontinues. It's not going to be as good as it was under Fitzpatrick to that like flashy big bombs that he throws, but Tua obviously is a good quarterback. That's why they drafted him so early. That's what he did in college. And he may be young, but I think he saw Fitzpatrick play half a season and learned a lot from that. So I would rather start him than some of these washed up QBs that I rather start Tua than Kurt, Tua than Rivers, Tua than not Wentz, but close to that range.
Okay, so and here's the thing why I bring him up because we're talking about waivers for this week, which means you're likely looking to pick up somebody you can start next week, and bye weeks have a lot to do with who you're picking up in the waiver wire. So especially if you're at quarterback. So let's say you have you need a quarterback next week, and these are the best 3 options in my eyes potentially. Look, I know Jared Goff coming off a terrible game, but he's playing Seattle, and if Seattle's going to be up on them or it's going to be a shootout, you have Jared Goff, you have Ben Roethlisberger, who is supposedly banged up, but let's say he's healthy. He just went off this last week, and they're playing Cincinnati, or you have Tua T playing the Los Angeles Chargers, who have given up the 6th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. Who would you pick up out of those 3 guys?
Without a question, I go with my old man, Big Ben.
Yeah,
Now,
that's what I would lean towards as well.
that offense is just deadly. Like their receivers are everywhere, and I don't know which receiver is going to get it, but I know if they do, Ben Roethlisberger's throwing it to them. So that's what I'm banking off of. Tua is nice, but Ben is just a tad higher than that.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing is with Tua, like I do think you could consider it now if you have no other option because he has rushing upside as well.
Yeah,
That's another
he's
thing.
nice. He's going to be a good QB going forward for fantasy. That's for sure. I can't wait these next couple of years.
Well, let's get into our dark horses of the week.
First round fantasies dark horses of the week.
So, as you know, we do our dark horse, which basically means our sleeper start of the week, and we like to cover what we did last week. So let's go ahead and do that first. And sometimes this hurts. It seems like it's hurting a lot lately. Real quick, I'll cover the other guys. So Gabe had Marvin Hall, didn't do so well. I had James White, didn't do great. Joseph had now I know why Joe didn't want to come on the show today. He had Jermichael Hasty, who the entire fantasy community was saying was plug and start. No, don't question it this week. And that did not work out well for anybody. Chase Edmonds, DeMont chose Chase Edmonds when you actually thought Chase Edmonds could go off. And then Justin chose Damian Harris. Look, actually, Chase Edmonds had a decent NFL game. He got a lot of value, but still very disappointing considering what you expected from him.
Yeah.
Look, we all got it wrong this week, man. So what can you do?
It doesn't matter we got it wrong. It's okay to get it wrong, but it's the wise. I think some of us made some decent calls, but who's to say that Edmonds wasn't going to do that bad? I mean, you got to move it forward and pick the horses that are going to get you to the win. So don't let 1 week get you down.
All right, Justin. So let's go with our dark horses this week. It's just going to be mine and your choices this week. So who do you got as your dark horse start for week 10?
I don't care if he's playing or not. This week, I feel it. If Tre'Davious White plays, I don't care. I'm still picking Hollywood Brown to be a stud this week.
Okay.
He's had listen, at the beginning of the year, I wanted to trade for him in every league possible because the upside that we saw in him. We hear them talking about how we need to feed him a little bit more. He's not happy. He's not getting enough targets. Jackson says we need to get this playmaker the ball. His targets did get an uptick this week, not a lot, but New England is compromised. That team is not good. I don't care if they beat the Jets just by a little bit. You can pass on them. And I'm taking Brown to be a good player to start with confidence.
Nice. Who are they playing this week?
They're playing against New England. That's why I mentioned Tre'Davious White.
Oh, that's right.
I don't care if he's playing. I'm still saying he's going to find a way.
That is a solid dark horse because this is a guy people are frustrated with, fantasy owners, and he's a guy you're not necessarily starting every week, no matter what. You're playing him based on matchups, based on who you have on your roster. So that is a good dark horse there, and I've entered it on our spreadsheet. So mine is one of those you could argue like, okay, oh man. So I will say, so I actually made a list. I'm not going to choose this as mine, but I actually made a list of 3 names because I saved backups in case somebody took my first choice.
Okay.
I was not watching that New England game tonight. I didn't even look at the stats until like we started doing this podcast. I had Jacoby Myers down as a dark horse for next week.
Ooh.
And they actually play Baltimore, which is crazy because Jacoby Myers just blew up and had a great game. You could consider that going forward. If you
can still pick it, I don't mind it because he's still not proven.
Yeah, no, I'm still gonna go with my first.
Him.
No, that's true. But I'm still gonna go. But that's just crazy because I just looked at my choices. I didn't even realize that until right now. I also had Jalen Reagor as an option for me, but I talked about him. And this for me, I think this qualifies because you're not necessarily starting him anymore, and this is Ronald Jones. I think, and I've said Ronald Jones. Even coming off those hot weeks when they were going against the Giants, I called Ronald Jones as my fool's gold, and I got that one right. I think now Ronald Jones is going to have a good game. Look, the Buccaneers, you know they're pissed off. You know Brady's pissed. And I was watching that game, and they actually got him going in the passing game a lot. And we know he's their lead rusher. But the thing is always, okay, they're going to use Fournette as their pass catching back. Fournette had 1 rush for 0 yards. He got a lot of receiving work, though, so he ended up with 10 points. Ronald Jones was still their main rusher, and he actually had, I think he had 4 targets and 3 catches or something like that. The point is, when I see Ronald Jones play, that man is playing harder than anybody out there on the football field. Like, the way he runs is just I wouldn't want that guy running towards me. He just looks like a beast on the field. So I think this is the week. I think the Bucs, they're playing Carolina, who is not great against the running game, and I think the Bucs are going to come up and whoop on the Panthers because they're totally pissed off and they're going to be up and they're just going to let Ronald Jones run it down their throat. So I'm going with Ronald Jones as my dark horse.
All I heard is if you get this right, then all the Ronald Jones owners need to come and ask you if it's a start or sit going forward. Because to guess his outcomes is a really, really difficult thing. So let's see. That would be interesting.
It's not even if they have a good matchup, that doesn't mean he's going to have a great game.
No, not at all.
Yeah. So I got the dark horse or the fool's gold one right, and then if I get this right, so that would mean I know when he's going to go off or not. So that's a good point, and I think that's fair because you don't know if you're starting Ronald Jones or not. Like he's not set it and forget it player.
Nope, not at all.
Awesome. Well, we'll probably get some of those inputs from the other guys, but we don't have them yet, so we'll have them we'll talk about their choices next week. Let's get to our fool's golds of the week.
You are out of here. Whatever. I don't really care. I'm just gonna sit this one out.
All right. As you know it, our fool's gold is players who we think other people might be high on, other people are considering starting or maybe starting no matter what, but we don't think they're going to meet these expectations or even have a good game in the first place. So, Justin, who is your fool's gold of the week?
I don't know who it is specifically because I'm waiting on an injury report, but I'm going to say the Bengals halfbacks against Pittsburgh. If it's Mixon, I don't like it. If it's Bernard, I don't like it. Pittsburgh is insane. That defense is crazy on the run. And even though Zeke has a down year, they stopped Zeke pretty well. And I have a feeling that they're just going to continue to do that to most every running back. And, I don't like Mixon to begin with. Bernard is a nice back because he's a good pass catcher and he makes something out of nothing, it seems, but not against Pittsburgh. I got to hold that reservation back. And it goes back to if you get McKissick, I actually would start McKissick over Mixon this upcoming week. That's how I stand on it.
Interesting. Well, that's definitely a good one for sure. Because not only is Baltimore tough, it's just he's coming off an injury if Mixon's back. And look, Bernard has put up some solid games with him out, but I still don't love the matchup there. I have a similar situation to yours, and it's even a lot more convoluted though, and that is don't start any Niners running back. Look, you had Jerick McKinnon he saved us fantasy managers on a last minute garbage time touchdown. And the thing is, people always say, "Oh, but they did it in garbage time." Look, I garbage time counts. And the thing is, garbage time goes into fantasy analysis because you can look at, do you say who's a bad team who's always losing? I don't know. If you know a team is bad, they have a terrible defense, but they have capable offensive players. Is every point they score when they're down garbage time because you know they're going to lose? I don't know, because I just think that people always say, oh, it doesn't count because they did it in garbage time. I still think it counts, but the problem is you don't know which Niners going to get you those running back points in garbage time. Every week, people start McKinnon, he does nothing. People sit McKinnon, he goes off. Not goes off, but has a solid 15-point fantasy game. It's just the only thing is this scares me because, look, Raheem Mostert, Kyle Shanahan said Raheem Mostert has a chance to play in week 12. Mm-hmm. I'd have a hard time telling you not to start Raheem Mostert if he's activated because he's the only guy that we have seen is going to be consistent on the 49ers. I still wouldn't feel great about starting him if they say he's back because he's still going to use Hasty. He's still going to use McKinnon. And they're playing the Rams, which isn't a great matchup. So
interesting. I was going to ask you, does that count if Mostert's back? And you just said, yeah.
It's tough, man. Like, it's very difficult. It just depends, like, what your options are. It really does. I mean, and that's for every start and sit, right?
Okay, so Mostert comes back. Do you start McKissick over Mostert? Do you start Gallman over Mostert?
No.
Okay.
But so, I actually look, let's use some real life examples here. So I have Mostert in a couple leagues, right? Okay. So, and this is funny because I was actually going to ask you Mixon. Let's say, I mean, Mixon is not anybody's flex. He should be your starting running back. But, well, this league's tough because I lost Montgomery this week. But before that, I had Mixon, Dobbins, and Montgomery. And let's say, I guess I would start him over Dobbins if all of those guys were healthy. But I don't know. It's tough, man. Like, let's say Mixon's out and Giovanni Bernard's playing. You'd play Mostert over Giovanni Bernard? Like if you had to?
Yeah, I do. I just know, I don't know why. If Mostert's playing for the Niners, he runs for the Niners. So I just have to ride that horse out. But it isn't a thing I'm feeling good about because we see what's going on. You listed how their running backs go. But Mostert seems to be the only consistent as he gets healthy. But I don't know if he's going to be healthy, so it's something I'd rather just stay away from altogether and plan for elsewhere.
Well, honestly, more than the inconsistency, I would worry that he's going to get banged up again during the game and leave the game, because that
Yeah,
kind of stuff scares me, and we've seen it
yeah.
happen before.
It's hard. Yeah, I agree with you. I would sit Niners running backs for sure.
Yeah, and the thing is, we think in terms of having two flex spots. Most people play with two wide receivers, two running backs, a tight end, and one flex spot. So people shouldn't. They should play with two flexes. I think that's the way fantasy should be. But so the thing is, people, that's what people are dealing with. They're like, okay, maybe they've had two solid running backs, and then they have, Justin Jefferson in their flex, and they feel decent about it. And then Mostert comes back out of nowhere. Do they want to start him over their solid running backs or their solid flexes? It's a tough decision. But I say this week, avoid the Niners backfield no matter what.
Decent call.
Awesome. So let's get into some trade targets, man. So this is an important one because we have the trade deadline coming up. In most of our Yahoo leagues, the trade deadline is November 14th. Mm-hmm. And that is actually Saturday, which is going to be right before the games on Sunday. And real quick, that reminds me, if you play any league that you play in, have your commissioner change it to be trades go through instantly. I'm not saying as soon as the other person accepts the trade, it goes through instantly. Make it so the commissioner can push the trade in instantly, because let's say you're making a trade on November 14th and you want to make that trade because you want to adjust your roster for the rest of the season. You're going to have to wait until after that week to get those players onto your team. And I don't know why you guys are crazy. Even I've seen you do it before too, Justin, in previous years, where you'll trade a player knowing you're not going to get them, knowing that they're going to play before they end up on your team. And I just think that's crazy, because let's say you trade for Dalvin Cook or whatever the case is, or anybody, and they get injured, and then that trade is still sitting there and you can't reverse the trade. It has to go through. So I just think it's something that people should do.
Agreed. Get that to be done, or just take it to a vote. And if anyone has problems with it, push it through.
All of our leagues used to be the other way, where we would have the voting thing and it would sit for 2 days. Who wants to wait like 2.5 days? Because if you made that trade in the morning, you would basically be waiting 3 days for the trade to go through.
Yeah.
All right. That being said, Justin, who are some trade targets you are eyeing this week?
All right, one of them's kind of unrealistic at this point because he's had so many great weeks. But if you're looking to get that player to get you to not the playoffs, but to win it all, Keenan Allen is the man. But I think he's become a little bit too expensive to go get a reasonable deal. Moving down, this is the player that I target that I think you can get for a decent price, and that's Fulgham.
That's a good one.
That guy is a stud, and I think anyone that has him, he's probably their at best third best receiver, fourth best receiver. So maybe they need a little halfback help, and you can merge a deal. But
it's funny that you say that. I have him in one league, and he's basically like my third best receiver. But honestly, at this point, he might be my second best receiver, to be honest. Because
your teams are a little bit different. I'm sorry.
What is that supposed to mean?
Sorry. No,
but look, in this league, team that I have him in, I have Hopkins. So he's obviously not my number one receiver.
No.
And I have Chris Godwin, who was supposed to work out. Thanks, Justin.
Yeah.
I have Brandon Ayuk, who went to the coveted list. And so, who is he better than any of those guys? He's not supposed to be
better than Ayuk, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. I'd rather have Fulgham than Ayuk. So that's a good deal. If you have someone that prefers Ayuk and you can get Fulgham for it, 10 out of 10 every day, do that trade.
Yeah, but I'm saying, if you look at it before, if you're just looking at it at the, a couple weeks ago or whatever, you would say, oh, maybe people prefer Chris Godwin, or I have Debo and Ayuk. So whoever the number one option is in San Francisco, maybe people want that guy. But I guess Fulgham would be my second best wide receiver.
This is how much I love Fulgham. I would consider trading Thielen for Fulgham plus a little, because Thielen has a name, and as a Viking fan, I know how that team operates, and that's actually a perfect trade. I'm a Thielen guy. I want to find the Fulgham owner and say, listen, here's Thielen and a backup, fourth running back for Fulgham and a RB3, something that gives me more depth. And I honestly might feel better starting Fulgham the rest of the year. I really do believe him and Wentz have a good thing going. That's where I stand on him. And
their schedule for the rest of the year is insane.
This is where I
wide
regret.
Receivers.
I told you I didn't use my waiver wire once, and this is beautiful because when I need a player these upcoming weeks, I'll have them. But I missed out on guys like Robinson and Fulgham.
And we're getting into our own leagues here, but I think for me, I actually like hearing about other fantasy analysts' real leagues, to be honest, because I like to hear what they're dealing with. It's relatable. And for me, Fulgham, right? And this is always the case with me. There's guys where like, oh, they're hot, and I don't pick them up. Like Curtis Samuel, like I'll see him even just available, and I'm like, nah. And I just keep like some random bench player who never does anything for me when I should have picked up Curtis Samuel. Fulgham, I did not use any waivers for him in that league that we're referencing, and I just picked him up. I went in the after midnight, and he was there, and I was like, you know what? I always avoid these guys. I'm gonna pick him up this time, and it worked out great for me.
Amazing for you.
Yeah.
Good.
So
yeah,
I'm I'm looking forward to him coming back next week.
Yeah,
I need him bad.
I think he's a start and don't look back type of guy.
I started him every week since I've had him.
That's what I'm talking about.
I'm talking about my lineup. You know my lineup. It's Hopkins and him. Those are my guys.
How about you? Who do you want to target to get?
Well, I actually just talked about Hopkins. And look, no matter what, even if Hopkins has 3 bad games in a row, you have to pay high for him. But I'm telling you, like, no matter what, this is just like, I don't know what it is. You can't change this. People, even us, are week to week influenced, heavily week to week influenced, no matter what. You could have Derrick Henry go off for a 40-point game. Then he comes back and does what he did this week. He's suddenly more accessible than he was last week. It's just how it is. So no matter what, Hopkins' value went down this week. It's just how it works. And he could have a blow up game for every game for the rest of the season. And even though some people don't have a trade deadline this week, just saying this is the lowest you'll ever get Hopkins for if people want to target him. So I would target Hopkins if you can, there might be a team struggling out there for depth. And look, don't be one of these guys who says, look, I'll give you one solid guy and 4 guys from my bench for Hopkins. Don't be one of those guys. Offer some solid, like 2 for 1 or maybe a 3 for 2 involving Hopkins, where you're giving the other guy a little bit more depth that he needs.
Okay, I'm gonna offer you a trade right now. I'll give you Lockett and Thielen for Hopkins and Fulgham.
Why though? It's just swapping 2 wide receivers.
Well, because maybe you prefer more. Lockett dropped 60 2 weeks ago.
I don't know, Matt. No, I'm saying no.
We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it. But I would love one day to get a live trade made on air. I think it happened before when we, at the beginning of the season, actually it was with you and me and DeMont. It's irrelevant now. In our Dynasty 2 QB league, I traded who was the Jacksonville quarterback? Gardner Minshew for James White. And it's like, trade is totally irrelevant now, but it was our only live trade on air.
Hey, it still counts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have any more trade targets?
No, just one that I want to trade away.
Oh, yeah. Well, trade sells as well.
Yeah, the guy that if I have on my roster I want to trade immediately while I can get something is Lamar Jackson. I still think he has name value. He has that recognition that it's going to garnish something. And maybe there's some Jackson fanboy in your league or loves what he does. I don't want him on my team. I wouldn't start him over some of these guys like Herbert or Lamar Jackson's not even a question anymore. Why would you bench Herbert for Lamar Jackson? You just don't do it. So go package Lamar Jackson, upgrade a wide receiver to a better one, upgrade a running back to a better one. I guarantee the Dak owner is still hurting for a quarterback. Probably there hasn't been that standout yet. So maybe go find that guy out and see what's happening. But yeah, I don't want Lamar Jackson anymore. I think we've seen enough this year. That team changed its dynamic. The defense is very good, and it's just not happening this year.
Look, I agree with you. I have Lamar Jackson in the league, and I would love to trade him somehow. But the problem is, I don't know what I'm going to get for him, man. Like I picked up Joe Burrow in that league, and he was available. And I'll give people a tip here. Joe Burrow has one of the best championship week, which is typically week 16. He plays Houston. It's Houston and Cincinnati, week 16.
Ooh.
Look, if you can get Joe Burrow for that championship game, do it. And even in the playoffs, I mean, Miami's not a great matchup, but week 1 playoffs, he has Dallas, and then you bench him on week 15 because he plays Pittsburgh, and then you play him week 16 again against Houston. Let's say I get to that point in that league. I'm probably playing Burrow over Jackson 2 of those 3 weeks, to be honest.
That's the point.
And I'll see if I can get Lamar Jackson off before then. Thank you, Justin, for that advice. You just not that I haven't thought about it, but you reminded me of it. So thank you.
There you go.
I don't have any sells, but same point with Hopkins for Derrick Henry. If you have somebody down on Derrick Henry, like I said, that week-to-week influence is just too strong. You can't stop it. I'm telling you guys, go try to get Derrick Henry. It's the cheapest you're ever going to get him for.
Yeah, if you can.
And Gabe locked me out of our league, the podcasters league, so I can't get in and share those results. And I don't have a viewer question of the week, so that's going to do it for this episode of the First Round Fantasy Podcast. Thank you for joining me, Justin. We are shooting pretty late here tonight, but I'm glad we got it done.
Yes, sir.
And if you didn't know, Justin already knows, but now I'm telling the people, if you guys didn't know, we're doing a second official podcast of the week. We've been doing Saturday shows, but that's something a little bit different. We're actually going to do a Thursday night show, which will be released on Friday mornings. And I believe we're finally going to get to do game previews on that one, Justin, because it makes the most sense, right? To go through each game and kind of analyze it fantasy-wise. But
I love it.
Thanks again, man. I'm Jacob Bartley, your host. We will see you all in a couple days here. Take care.
Peace.